Hi, everybody. I'm Judy Tate. I am the founding artistic director of the Manhattan Theater Club's Stargate Theatre. If you're not familiar, Stargate is a theater company within a theater company. And every summer we employ a group of young men whose lives have been impacted by the justice system to form an ensemble that writes, rehearses, and performs an original play. And I am thrilled today to introduce you to somebody who is a real advocate for young people going through the justice system. His name is Mike Pope. Hi, Mike.
Hi there.
He is the executive director of Youth Represent. This incredible organization works to improve the lives of young people affected by the criminal justice system in New York City. Hi.
Hi there. Hi, Judy. So nice to see you,
We've met
Amelia.
before when you've come to Stargate, but this is the
I have.
first time I've been able to interview you. It's so wonderful that we have the ability to let people in on, some of the context of this work that we do and that we're sort of simpatico in.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about Youth Represent and what's the scale and the scope of your work here in New York City? What do you do?
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for the introduction and for the invite. I'm so honored to be able to work or to be on this. As you mentioned, I have had the honor and privilege to come to a couple of the productions that you guys have put on, and I absolutely adore them. Love the work that you all do. So thank you. I'm excited to be here. So Youth Represent, we're a legal services nonprofit organization based in New York City. We provide legal support for youth after they've been involved with the criminal legal system. And primarily what we focus on, right, is that you have a right to an attorney if you are accused of a crime, right? And so you have an attorney that's assigned to you that will advocate for you, that will fight for you until that case ends. And yet once that case ends, there are a whole number of questions and challenges that the criminal system can put in your place that can block successful reentry or reintegration into securing a job, employment, housing, education, family, all of these things, right? And so that's where Youth Represent picks up. We provide attorneys for youth after criminal system involvement to support them in all of those legal needs that they have to figure out, all of the things that life brings about after the justice system.
We met you because we were, maybe Paul was, but we were not quite as aware as we maybe could have, should have been, that a lot of our guys don't know their rights.
Yep.
And one of our guys was picked up the morning of one of our shows. Paul Gutkowski, everybody, is our company manager. He had to go on stage. We did not know where the guy was. Turns out he was picked up and held overnight. And that's how we got to you.
Yeah.
How do you get in touch with most of your guys?
Yeah, most of the time, unfortunately, I should say that story is very, it's unfortunately a lot more common, right? Like the confusion, the fear that surrounds what's happening in the system, and just not knowing where to turn and how to ask questions and figure things out, right? It's a normal, unfortunate story of our systems. And what makes Youth Represent really unique is that we're based in a community lawyering model. So what that means for us is that we don't have, we have an office in the city. We meet with clients there, but most of our staff is not in that office. Most of our staff is set up on site at different community partners all across the city. So we have 24 partner organizations, all based in the neighborhoods, all of our boroughs, including Staten Island. Important to say, Staten Island doesn't get a lot of support and they really need it out there. So we have partnership sites of other nonprofits that, these are everything. These are employment organizations, theater-based companies, alternative to incarceration programs, the settlement houses, organizations that have sometimes been around and in the community for over 100 years and have that established relationship and workers, but they don't have an attorney on site to provide the legal support for youth. And that's where we come in, right? Like, if for lawyers, here's the thing. if we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, we're good at the law, and we're probably not good at a lot of other things, right? Like that's not what our role is, right? And so we partner with organizations that are spectacular and amazing and provide resources for youth. And we come in and we hang a shingle and we provide the legal support while working closely with our partner sites to make sure that the clients receive truly holistic services.
That's wonderful, because what I think a lot of people who are interested in our work maybe don't understand that these young men can be food insecure. We started providing food for our company members the first year when we realized, when a guy told me, I haven't eaten since yesterday afternoon. And what is sometimes considered criminal behavior can come out of these challenges to find resources. So it's great to understand what these what else these community organizations do. They're often housing insecure as well, which leads to other problems. I understand that you guys work with our guys to review rap sheets. That I didn't realize that. Why is that important?
Yeah, it is a large misconception, right? Where I think for a lot of people, they would think, hey, like if I got arrested, I would know exactly what happened. But that's really, I would encourage you to go sit in criminal court, sit in criminal court and see if you can figure out what's going on, and just watch what happens in the system and the processes, right? And what frequently happens with folks is they have no idea really what happened in that, they were arrested for something, you're arrested for jumping the turnstile, whatever that is, right? You go to court, you stood up for maybe a minute and you were told, hey, stay out of trouble for 6 months and you'll be fine. Talk to you later. Now the question is that on your rap sheet? Do you have to talk about that? Should you talk about that? How do you talk about that? What does it say, right? All of these questions, you don't have a right to figure out like what's going on. And that's really where we step in. Youth Represent, we provide, we get a copy of the actual rap sheet, one, to review it for errors and mistakes. There's a large number of errors and mistakes on background checks where they're releasing more information than they're supposed to. But even ignoring errors and mistakes for a second, there's just confusion around exactly what does it say on my rap sheet, and do I need to talk about it with an employer? That's where we step in, is we provide copies of the rap sheets to clients, and everything goes into a system and it spits out a nice, easy report to be able to see and say, okay, here's exactly what's on your rap sheet. Here's what you have to talk about. And also here's the things you don't want to talk about. And frankly, the things that the employers don't want to hear about, right? They're sealed cases, juvenile cases, things that employers, they don't want to hear it, because as soon as they hear it, it causes legal problems for them and they have to figure it out. And so we really step in and make sure that when folks are entering that intimidating job environment or housing application, they know exactly what's on there, exactly what to say, and exactly what not to say.
That is wonderful. I mean, filling out applications can be daunting as it is. Yeah. And every time, when I filled out applications for this and that, and they have that question about I'm challenged. So I can imagine how a kid who lives in a neighborhood where they're just routinely picked up on the street, I can't imagine how they deal with that. I also understand that Youth Represent is involved in the effort to raise the age of adult prosecution. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, love to. And actually, we just released a report, hot off the presses, 2 days ago. Cool. So people should check out, it's on all of our social. Instagram is Youth Represent NYC. We just posted the report. But yes, Youth Represent, prior to the law being changed, was one of only 2 states in the country that automatically criminalized folks at 16. So you're 16, right? Like you can't vote, you can't smoke, you can't drink. But if you get arrested for doing anything, you are treated just like a 45-year-old. That was raised, which is spectacular. It was a ton of advocacy by a lot of organizations. Youth Represent just one of those. And we were able to raise it back in 2017, which is exciting. But what we've been doing for the last 2 years, and this is the report that we just released, was a analysis of what exactly is happening in these court proceedings on these 16 and 17-year-olds, and how are these cases being processed, and what's the impact of this law. And there's good and there's bad, right? The good is that, as you folks can read on the report, the good is that we're seeing a substantial decrease in total number of arrests, which is flat out excellent, right? Like that is a target, that is a goal. we're seeing the lowest rates of arrest in decades, frankly. It was a 24% drop across the state, across the city, and a larger drop across the state. But there's also bad, right? Like, and one of the most prominent of those is the racial disparities that still persist. Nearly all of the folks that are arrested in New York City it's 92 or 3% are Black or Latinx folks, right? Like, and those, the raise the age law, while having success, didn't address the issue of communities of color in New York City being highly over-policed, and the overwhelming impact of that on communities, right? And so that's what we're talking about a lot in the report, is the so what, right? Like the what do we need to do now? We need to address the dehumanizing court system that currently exists. We need to focus on centering families in the process. We need to focus on answering these questions of and addressing these issues of racial disparities and the over-policing of low-income communities of color, right? And so for us, it's a mixed bag, right? Like, it's let's celebrate the successes, but let's also identify that we are still a long way for achieving a criminal justice system, right?
Yeah. One of the things that we learned was that very slowly judges and people in, youth courts are beginning to consider the brain science that has been, looked at over the past several years, and that these youngsters' brains don't develop, their prefrontal cortex, which, risk and all of those kinds of things, all of the same reason that, kids didn't want to be on lockdown, right? Exist. And that's very different from an adult brain.
And it's amazing. I like to say, like, how many folks have you talked to that you said, hey, when you were 21, did you have it all figured out? Did you have everything figured out? You were able to, like, see the future and all of that, and make, thoughtful decisions that you were able to make at 30? And of course not, right? Like we were all still growing, and science shows, right? Like, our brain is still growing and learning into all the way up to 24. And that's why youth represent, we're 24 and under, actually. And so the majority of our clients are actually young adults, because that the brain science supports that they're still developing, growing, learning who they are and what they want to be.
Yeah, I was in a high school up in Connecticut, very, very wealthy community. And I asked them what's, like, some of the worst stuff that they've done in school or seen done in school. And they, named them all. And I said, and so what happened when you got arrested for that? And they went, what?
Yeah.
Because those are the exact same things that many of our guys have been arrested and put in jail for, kid pranks, in other communities, in our communities. Yeah. Not so. What's your take on programs like Stargate Theatre as a part of the youth justice ecosystem?
By the way, I was going to say, they have no idea what I'm going to say right now. It could be bad, but thankfully it is not. Thankfully it is not. I think, right, like, here's the thing that inspires me, right? That you have, where we're at right now is you have Black Lives Matter, which has been a movement for a long time, right? It's just now getting visibility and presence. And you have folks that are seeing, hey, I have a voice, and this voice can have an impact, right? And so for me, programs like Stargate Theatre are showing and helping folks both express themselves and learn that, you don't have to be in theater. You don't have to be like the external person that always wants to get on the stage, right? Like, you have a voice regardless of who you are, and that voice has power, and that voice can be powerful on stage, right? Like, that voice can be powerful out in a protest. But to me, that's where, Stargate is showing how voices can be powerful, and how theater, frankly, like in this COVID world where who knows, I mean, what's going to be happening with Broadway, what's going to be happening with stage performance, but that it still thrives and survives, right? Like, in this environment. And frankly, like, there's this interplay between the movement that's happening right now and the ability to be empowering folks' voices. And that's why, that's why I love going to performances of you all. That's why I'm kind of a secret fan. I like follow all of the things on social media, because I do think it allows for youth to see the power in their voice. And that is huge right now.
Thank you. That's what we strive to do. Give,
Mhm.
not give them voice. They've got voices. Channel it.
Exactly. Right.
Channel it in a
Right.
way that it has more impact.
Right.
And I have one final question. Actually, I have a lot more questions, but this is a short interview. How will you define success in the coming years, do you think? You know, there's a lot of stuff that's happening at the same time, and I think they get conflated. Like just
Mhm.
very recently, there's an uptick in gunplay, and in my mind, I relate that to it's economics. The city knows who those people are. I don't know, kids, men,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and all of the economy is dire. And so anything on the street would be even more dire. You know,
Yeah.
so when you think about the coming years, do you take that into account? How do you see that? And then how
Yeah.
do you define success?
It's such a great question. Thank you. And I think, you know, I think how I would define success is that the question of like, everybody's talking about like getting back to normal. Um, and we need to not do that, right? Like normal for folks, frankly, normal for like middle class white folks was fine. But like when we're talking about the impact on low income communities of color and BIPOC communities, that normal was not okay, right? Like, and
Right.
so when I'm thinking about youth represent, when I'm thinking about what it means for us to be successful, it's actually taking this opportunity, both within COVID and the world being turned upside down, but also the focus on racial justice within the United States. And success is that we don't go back to the last 400 years of our history, right? And we don't go back to continuing these systems of oppression that we've had for a really long time, right? Like we actually don't just learn, which I think we need to do as a society. We need to learn about our history. We need to grow and build in that. But at the same time, we need to start making change and making impact, right? And so for me, it's thinking about things like in the beginning, the raise the age, great, we raise the age, that's spectacular, but there still persists this continuation of racial disparity within the system. And that's to us that youth represent, that's not success, right? Like we need to rebuild that system in a way that actually brings equality and justice for folks, and that people can feel that they can turn to the criminal system as a form of justice, right? And they can achieve justice through that system amongst the many other ones, or tear it down, right? Like we need to build something that actually brings about power into community. And so that's what we're really focusing on. That's what we're hearing from our partners and what we're excited to be building in the next couple of years. We can't go back. We can't go back to the history that we've been having. We need to start building something new. And so that'll be success if we can achieve it.
That's great. I know that a lot of our guys come in and they've got mental health issues that haven't been addressed. And because they have mental health issues and don't have systems of support, drugs come into play because, hey, I've got to, I have trauma and I need to deal with that trauma. In a middle-class community, a middle-class white community, perhaps, you go and you get, Prozac or whatever,
Exactly.
whatever.
Yep.
And our guys self-medicate and then end up in the justice system.
Yep, exactly.
That's one case like that.
Exactly. And I think that's right. Like a lot of, focus on, absolutely, there's mental health, there's a lack of access to mental health services, right, within low-income communities of color. And that doesn't, I think what happens is that we focus on that and we say, look at this is an issue, right? But you're absolutely right. It's the same issue within all communities. It's just those other communities have different access to support and resources. Like drug abuse is absolutely something that is not something solely within, low-income communities of color, right? Like that's something that's across the systems. It's just a question of who has access to resources and wealth to be able to address those issues, right? And so, I think that the more that we can create places like Stargate, like Youth Represent, the more that we can create opportunities for access to help and to support these challenges that we all have equitably, the better a system that we're going to create.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. This has been wonderful talking to you. I could talk to you for hours more.
Me too. It's been great. Thank you all so much for the work that you do, truly.
And thank you for the work that you do. I feel like our companies are so simpatico. And everybody out there, thank you for joining us. And please join us for Stargate Theatre's production this year of The Divide, premiering on MTC's YouTube channel and our Facebook page on Thursday, September 10th at 7 p.m. I hope you will join us.
I will be there. I will be there.
Great. Thank you so much. It's great to talk to you.
Thank you, Judy, as well.
Okay. Bye-bye.